Hello everybody, Darren here, and today I'm going to introduce you to the upcoming sci-fi RTS game Falling Frontier. Now, Falling Frontier is made by a solo developer and focuses its gameplay on grounded science fiction. You choose one of several origins, build up your economy, research technologies, create war vessels, and duke it out with your competitors over resources in a nearby star system named Damarat. This game has an incredible amount of depth and detail, from its modular ship components to the realistic way it simulates station orbit, docking, and destruction. Before I introduce you to more of the game and show you some of its gameplay, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Skillshare offers classes ranging from creative writing, graphic design, video editing, and even Unity, which is how the game in this video was created, using Unity. I've used it personally when I wanted to learn more advanced techniques for video editing. I took the class Animating with Ease in After Effects by Jake Bartlett, which was excellent because the class also provides art assets and project files, which are huge time savers. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there's no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes, workshops, as well as their new live classes. Skillshare Premium is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, and the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Thank you to Skillshare. So, Falling Frontier is an RTS game. It has elements of 4X and grand strategy, but it is in fact an RTS set in one very large star system. It's worth mentioning the game will be entering into early access on Steam in the coming months, and all the footage used in this video represents work-in-progress development. The developer Stutterfox Studios, or Todd Darcy, has kindly worked with me on this video to provide me with information and video footage to showcase the game more accurately. Falling Frontier is particularly attractive to me because of its grounded take on the world. There's no laser beams or shields. Instead, weaponry is largely based on practical, physics-based projectiles. Ships consume fuel and populations within them consume food. Both need to be physically brought to ships and stations, or else they may get stranded and captured, or the population could simply starve in the dark void. Line of sight and recon is extremely important. Ships or stations can hide in asteroid fields, nebula, and behind large planetary bodies. Knowledge is power, and using probes can reveal enemy locations and fleet composition, but everything has a risk. Should an enemy find your probe, they may learn where it came from and use that information to their advantage. Should it get destroyed, you'll never know the true cause of its destruction, be it an enemy or just a common breakdown. You could risk following up with a second probe, but again, you could end up giving your enemy even more information. It's these sort of practicalities that have me eagerly anticipating Falling Frontier. The thought of a ship being destroyed, watching its escape pods evacuate, and then knowing I can't reach them before they'll die sort of terrifies me. On the flip side, destroying an enemy vessel and watching them die excites me. Now, you probably wouldn't want to do that, as a captured crew can be interrogated for information, but I know some of you will want to send a message. The economy of the game is no different. Mined goods need to physically travel to stations to be refined and used for repairs, food, or the creation of ships. These stations are the focal point of your logistics. They allow for the transfer of population from colonies to orbit and then to ships, as well as act as the deposit box for your supply ships and where you'll construct new ones. Ship stations can also set refill thresholds for resources where if they dip below those amounts, purchase orders will then be automatically carried out, and supply ships will be built in order to ferry the resources to and from the station until they meet their quote. Logistics are so important in this regard that the game has a dedicated logistics view where you can visualize your connected stations. This is important because, as I mentioned before, ships need to physically get their materials from stations or be brought them from supply ships in order to stay fueled, fed, and armed. Finding enemy supply depots and blockading them is a very real tactic to prevent ships getting what they need to stay operational. If this was a more traditional RTS, what's mined in one corner of the world would be added to a global stockpile and you just get everything everywhere instantly. I cannot stress the importance of the physicality of the resources. It's tied to nearly every aspect of gameplay. Population are also part of the economy, though they only grow on colonies and are then distributed around via the logistics system. But unlike resources, they're never automatically moved. You must manually move population around and obviously protect them. Not only are they needed to crew ships, but they also generate revenue in the form of taxes and are needed to create officers. Officers will enhance a ship's capabilities, but they can be killed in battle or indeed captured by the enemy if they used an escape pod. In this way, ships kind of have their own microeconomy, whereby they need to fuel to use faster than light travel, munitions to fire their weapons, and population to crew them. That population of course need food to stay alive, so keeping ships supplied is no small order, especially if you want to keep a fleet hidden somewhere defensively in an ambush. You're going to have to ferry its supplies or recall it to supply itself. And this kind of brings us to combat. What you're fighting over in Falling Frontier isn't borders or territories, it's planets, moons, and raw resources. Resources will eventually run out, much like other RTS games, so you're encouraged to use what you have carefully, which is why recon is so important. You want to know what you're walking into, because every ship lost is essentially gone forever. In combat, ships will vary in size and capability, and how you approach combat is half the battle. You'll want to time your ships so that they arrive together and make sure they don't block each other's line of sight. Friendly fire is a real thing in Falling Frontier, because even the projectiles are physicalized, they're not pre-calculated. This means you can get lucky or unlucky by hitting a particularly vulnerable part of a ship, causing it to explode. There are some ship abilities like laying minefields and boosting engines, but generally, maneuverability and ship-to-ship hard counters are the key to victory. Ship-to-ship boarding isn't currently planned, though disabled ships can be stolen from the enemy and repaired. When it comes to fighting stations, boarding actions are planned, though they're not currently in the game yet. Ships themselves have modular designs where you can create your own ship compositions, and they come with their own benefits and drawbacks. Bigger ships generally have the capability to fit longer range weapons, but often lack the turning speed to deal with smaller ships attempting to swarm them. Traveling with a relatively balanced fleet composition will leave you prepared for any engagement, but as mentioned before, recon is king. If you know there's a destroyer lurking somewhere, you can choose your approach quite carefully and hit it before it ever even turns and fires back at you. Similarly, if you find an undefended station, you can assault it outright with a very small ship in a sort of hit-and-run tactic. These kinds of engagements could be countered with defenses, such as minefields, station defenses, and defensive platforms created and customized in the ship designer. Eventually, colonies can even be upgraded to house planetary defense weaponry, as there is a threat of planetary bombardment. Now, this all sounds really great to me, but there is a catch, and for a lot of people it may be a deal breaker, at least initially. So here it is. There will be no campaign, no multiplayer, and no mod support on launch, but Todd says depending on the reception of the game during early access, these will be considered. So what does that leave the game with? Well, for now, it'll be a sort of sandbox conquest mode of sorts, with you and several other AI vying for control of resources in the Damarat star system. There's no diplomacy, instead your victory conditions are to eliminate everyone or your nemesis faction. At the moment, you choose your lineage from one of 9 places in our solar system, and these will give you some unique benefits, but then it's basically like a free-for-all, as there's no diplomacy or trade either. There will be a little bit of backstory to provide some context, but generally it's going to depend whether or not the game is successful and if players want that from Stutterfox before any story or narrative is going to be fleshed out. On the one hand, this is all kind of disappointing, but on the other hand, it is one developer. And while I absolutely adore the direction of the game and love single-player experiences, I'm trying to be realistic with my expectations here. It does seem like with one system, the game may get fairly repetitive, though again, Todd has mentioned the idea of procedurally changing some of the star system's resources and planetary bodies around to create a fresh sandbox playthrough. I really hope the game is considered successful, so we see future development into some of these features, as I think the potential for a grounded sci-fi game is huge. Honestly, I just kind of want to see way more games be like that, especially when they have historical settings. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give a shout out to Scott Buckley. He's doing the game's soundtrack, and I think it's fantastic so far. He's a composer with a Patreon where people support him, and he releases his music copyright free. So please consider checking him out. As well as that, if you're interested in Falling Frontier, the best way to support them is just to wishlist the game on Steam, and consider subscribing to their YouTube channel, Stutterfox Studios. Todd, the developer, really is lovely and went out of his way to send me footage and give me information, so a really big thank you to him and for being so communicative on his Discord. I will definitely be buying this game when it launches in early access. Small developer or not, this is exactly the type of game I want to support, but please consider letting me know what you think in the comments, and consider liking the video if Falling Frontier is something you want to see more of on this channel in the future. That's all from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, thank you very much for watching, and remember, if you want to support this series directly, you can click the join button to become a channel member. Doing so will get your name in the credits, as well as loyalty badges and emotes to use in the comments. If you don't see the join button, it means the video has been copyright claimed, but you can still join from the channel page on desktop. You can also link your account to our Discord to get a special role on there that'll give you access to the Senate House and a few other perks.